At a House Education and Workforce Committee hearing in June, Congress convened to discuss the problem with screens in schools.
Screens are now pervasive, mostly in the form of student cell phones, drawing attention away from interactive discussion and instruction. Too often, students spend most of their days with their heads down, thumbs scrolling, and only a fraction interacting with increasingly discouraged teachers.
School administrators, academia, and experts in the field were invited to testify about the issue.
On one hand, we acknowledge that smartphones offer unparalleled access to information and can be a valuable learning tool. However, the overwhelming evidence, as has been noted, points to serious downsides. Primarily relentless distraction and detrimental impacts not only on academics, but as well as mental and behavioral health.
Children as young as 8 now spend 4 to 6 hours daily on screens. Teens average nearly 9. And while some screen time is instructional, much of it is not. And teachers are reporting rising distractions in class, anxiety, and disengagement of students.
Congressman Kiley began his line of questioning asking Dr. Jean Twenge, a professor at San Diego State, about the effects on the student brain.
Could you kind of expand on how these devices are actually rewiring the developing brain?
Yeah, and I want to be clear, I'm not a neuroscientist, so I haven't really, done fMRI studies or any of that. But what we do know is the effect on attention span and how people end up feeling a compulsion, to take that phone out every time it buzzes. And adults feel that. And then think about being 10 and having your first smartphone. And that trains the brain to have that, oh, it's buzzing, take it out. And that happens in school all the time.
So what's the answer? Representatives from Utah and Texas discuss how their states are working on legislation to ban cell phone use during school hours, which they say in pilot programs has had a positive impact.
Could you share what you observed during that process and what lessons you've taken away from the experience?
So a few years ago, before statewide expectations, we identified it as an issue. And working with a few junior high schools and one high school, we identified what would be a bell-to-bell restriction. And what we identified there is data is very important to track to see what the effect is, right? This is the intervention, what are the outcomes? What we noticed in that, first of all, the students for the first 2 weeks really struggled. And I visited the school before the restriction took place, and I just made a casual observation in the lunchroom, and heads were buried in their phones, and very little interaction was occurring. Follow up, fast forward, when the restriction was in place, I was in the lunchroom. Students are talking to each other, they're engaging, they're laughing, they're having a much better time, more interactive time. I would say as far as the data is concerned, over the course of those 3 years, we've seen an increase in proficiency in ELA, math, and science, both not only in the proficiency, but in the growth in those academic content areas, as well as student discipline improving.
One such solution being tried is the Yonder magnetic pouch, in which students lock up their devices during the school hours and give them back at the end of the school day. Matthew Gibbins is an assistant superintendent in the state of Texas.
In our first pilot at a junior high school, the results were immediate and profound. 98% of teachers reported fewer disciplinary issues, and 100% reported more instructional time. Following that success, we expanded to several campuses, including a high school with nearly 3,000 students. We proactively addressed parent safety concerns through community meetings and clear emergency protocols. The feedback and outcomes were encouraging. For example, this year's preliminary data shows suspensions at certain campuses dropped between 15% and 54%. Classroom engagement improved, and teacher retention at one of our Yonder campuses climbed to 94%, with many citing the phone-free environment as a primary reason for staying in the profession. Perhaps most importantly, teachers across all campuses reported regaining more than 10 minutes of instruction per class period. That's over an hour per week per class. That is now focused on student learning and connection.
While most agree that devices during school hours are causing harm to kids' mental well-being, Congresswoman Bonamici raised concerns of parents who may want to contact their kids in an emergency.
How do you respond to that?
So fortunately, it is a minority of parents who are against the smartphone bans during the school day. The vast majority do support them. But when concerns are brought up, it's very often in that category. What if there's an emergency? In particular, a lot of parents want to know that. So when I give talks at schools, parents will bring that up. Principals say they get that question from parents. Now, it turns out school safety experts are in agreement that students having access to their phones during an active shooter situation is actually more dangerous. So that's for a number of reasons. So for one thing, if they're distracted by their phones, they may not listen to the instructions about where they need to go to keep themselves safe. The noise from those devices can alert shooters to where students are hiding.
As the hearing wrapped up, lawmakers agreed that while most of the work to address this issue is on the state level, the federal government can also help by continuing to fund mental health programs for kids. For more clips like this, stay tuned to Congress Clips, and thanks for watching.